Elise Carmichael had always believed in the sanctity of her work, the quiet hum of justice that resonated within the polished halls of Sterling and Holt, attorneys at law. For 5 years, she'd poured her soul into corporate litigation, meticulously crafting briefs, spending late nights hunched over glowing screens, fueled by lukewarm coffee and an unwavering faith in due process. She believed in the system, in the idea that hard work and ethical conduct inevitably led to reward. Her mentor, Julian Mercer, had been the embodiment of that belief, a man of quiet integrity, respected by all, whose silver hair and calm demeanor exuded an almost paternal wisdom. He was the reason she'd chosen Sterling and Holt after law school, drawn by its reputation for ethical rigor and a culture that supposedly championed merit. Elise had always seen the firm not just as a workplace, but as a bastion of intellectual honesty, a place where legal acumen was celebrated and moral uprightness was paramount. This deep-seated trust, almost an innocent conviction, made the subtle shifts, the almost imperceptible cracks in her professional foundation, so profoundly disorienting at first. She attributed the initial unease to her own perfectionism, her tendency to overanalyze. It began with seemingly trivial things. Emails CCing her on projects she had no direct involvement in, only for her carefully prepared contributions to be subtly downplayed or, worse, entirely attributed to others in subsequent meetings. She'd brush it off, attributing it to oversight, the fast-paced, high-stakes nature of their firm. "Just a busy week, Elise," Julian Mercer would say, his smile reassuring, his words a balm to her nascent doubts. Everyone's stretched thin. Don't take it personally. She wanted to believe him, wanted to cling to the comfortable narrative of a fair and just workplace. Then came the increasingly opaque decision-making processes. Cases she was deeply invested in, complex corporate mergers or intellectual property disputes where her analytical skills and exhaustive research had formed the backbone of their strategy, would suddenly proceed without her input. Pivotal strategy meetings, which she had prepared for with meticulous care, would be held, and decisions already made, sealed, before she even knew they had occurred. The firm's internal communication system, once a clear conduit for information, seemed to become a murky, selective filter. She found herself constantly chasing updates, feeling increasingly out of the loop, like a vital cog that was slowly but deliberately being detached from the machinery. The first tremor of true, unsettling doubt truly hit when she was passed over for a lead counsel position on the upcoming Hargrove acquisition, a monumental case she had practically lived and breathed for the past 6 months. She had dedicated countless weekends, sacrificed holidays, pored over every line of the acquisition agreement, identified potential legal loopholes, and even developed a groundbreaking strategy for the regulatory hurdles. The role, a significant career advancement, felt like her rightful next step. The sting was sharp, almost a physical pain, when the announcement came. The lead went to Griffin Hayes, a junior partner who had joined the firm a mere 2 years prior and whose primary, and Elise would argue, only, contribution to Hargrove had been the occasional late-night pizza order and a smattering of superficial research. Griffin was charming, undeniably, with an easy laugh and a knack for networking, but his legal chops were, in Elise's professional opinion, underdeveloped. He was a schmoozer, not a strategist. When she approached Julian Mercer, seeking understanding, a glimmer of explanation, he offered a placating smile and a vague explanation about firm restructuring and optimizing talent allocation. He spoke of a bigger picture she couldn't yet see, a grander design for the firm's future that necessitated these seemingly disparate decisions. "Trust the process, Elise," he'd murmured, patting her shoulder. "Your time will come. We value your dedication immensely." Elise, still clinging to her naive optimism, tried desperately to accept it, to rationalize it away. Maybe it was her inexperience, maybe she just needed to work harder, to prove herself undeniably, to eliminate any shadow of a doubt. She redoubled her efforts, taking on even more demanding cases, volunteering for complex pro bono work that nobody else wanted, arriving earlier, staying later. She became a phantom in her own apartment, a ghost inhabiting the office, her life an endless cycle of brief writing and legal research. Her partner, Jasper Monroe, a kind and steady presence in her increasingly tumultuous life, began to notice the shift. His gentle questions, his worried glances, were a constant, quiet counterpoint to the growing unease within her. He urged her to take a break, to talk to someone, but Elise, ever the stoic, believed she could power through, that sheer effort would eventually break through the invisible barrier that seemed to be forming around her. The insidious nature of the pressure was its utter subtlety. It wasn't overt hostility, no shouting matches or direct confrontations, but a slow, almost imperceptible erosion of her standing, her authority, her very sense of self-worth within the firm. The microaggressions compounded. Colleagues, once jovial and collaborative, seemed to skirt around her, their conversations hushed when she approached. Her ideas, once met with enthusiasm and debate, were now met with polite, perfunctory nods and then swiftly discarded, like pebbles tossed into a bottomless well. She found herself constantly replaying conversations, dissecting every glance, every tone of voice, searching for a tangible cause, a clear antagonist, a reason for this creeping professional alienation. The feeling of being watched, judged, and found wanting became a constant companion, a suffocating weight that gnawed at her peace of mind. Her sleep, once deep and restorative, became fractured by anxieties, a relentless parade of unspoken slights and professional disappointments replaying in a distorted loop within her mind. She started keeping a meticulous mental log, then, surreptitiously, a physical one, a small, unassuming notebook with a plain cover, tucked away in her desk drawer beneath a stack of old legal journals. In it, she documented everything: the dates of the missed meetings, the precise cases reassigned from her purview, the increasingly vague and unhelpful feedback from her superiors, the fleeting moments of whispered conversations that ceased upon her arrival. It felt almost paranoid, like something out of a spy novel, yet a deeper, visceral instinct told her it was not just necessary, but vital for her survival. She was meticulously gathering pieces of a puzzle she didn't yet fully comprehend, but sensed held a dark, unsettling image. The truth began to coalesce, slowly at first, then with an accelerating, terrifying momentum. The turning point from quiet apprehension to stark, cold fear came with the Everett Sloan incident. Everett Sloan was a significant client, a brilliant but eccentric tech magnate whose burgeoning artificial intelligence company was facing a complex, high-stakes patent infringement suit from a much larger, more established competitor. Elise had been the primary attorney on the case from its inception, having spent months immersing herself in the intricate, arcane details of cutting-edge AI technology, even taking crash courses in neural networks and machine learning to truly understand the nuances of the invention. She had cultivated a strong rapport with Everett, earning his trust through her sheer diligence and intellectual honesty. She was preparing for the final, crucial deposition, the culmination of countless hours of research and strategy, the moment that would define the trajectory of the entire case. The stakes were enormous, both for Everett's company and for her own career. Then, she was abruptly informed that Julian Mercer would be taking over as lead counsel, effective immediately. The justification, delivered with a rehearsed solemnity by Julian himself, was that it was a strategic decision to leverage Julian's extensive experience with high-profile clients, a move to ensure the best possible outcome for Mr. Sloan. But it felt wrong, fundamentally wrong. She knew Julian's strengths. He was a brilliant litigator, certainly, but patent law, especially in such a niche and rapidly evolving technological field, was not his forte. It was her domain, her expertise. She had built this case, painstakingly, brick by intellectual brick. The decision gnawed at her, a constant, irritating static in her mind. Why, after all her effort, would they sideline her at the most critical juncture? The next day, as she was compiling her research for a different, less significant case, a mundane real estate dispute, she stumbled upon a damning email. It was an internal memo, an accidental forward from a careless junior associate named Liam Thatcher, who had clearly meant to send it to someone else. The subject line was innocuous, FY25 Strategic Client Allocation Review. But the content sent a cold dread seeping into her bones, chilling her to the marrow. The memo outlined a new client retention strategy, a cynical, corporate euphemism for what quickly became apparent was a scheme. It detailed how certain high-value clients, specifically those with upcoming, lucrative litigation or M&A opportunities, would be transitioned to partners who had a financial stake in a newly formed, opaque subsidiary of Sterling and Holt. The subsidiary, vaguely referred to as Orem Holdings LLC, was described as a special-purpose vehicle for optimized investment returns. Julian Mercer's name was prominently featured on the list of preferred partners for this new arrangement, alongside Griffin Hayes, who was listed as a key operational lead. Her name, notably, was absent from every single list, every single mention of future high-value cases or strategic opportunities. The memo also contained thinly veiled references to streamlining operations and identifying underperforming assets, which, in context, felt like a direct and chilling indictment of her. It wasn't about incompetence, it was about something far more sinister, a deliberate maneuver to exclude her from the most lucrative opportunities, to systematically siphon off the profits from her hard work, and perhaps, ultimately, to push her out of the firm entirely. The naive belief in the system she had so ardently clung to shattered into a million irreparable pieces. It was replaced by a stark, cold, and terrifying realization: she was not a valued member of the firm, but a pawn in a game she hadn't known she was playing, a game rigged against her from the start. The betrayal stung with an intensity that eclipsed any professional disappointment. This wasn't merely professional slight, it was a carefully orchestrated maneuver, a cynical exploitation of her labor and loyalty. Julian, her mentor, the man she had admired and trusted implicitly, was not just complicit, he was at the heart of it, a puppeteer pulling the strings of her career. The memo, with its chillingly corporate language about underperforming assets, made it brutally clear: she was being systematically sidelined, not because of her performance, which she knew was exemplary, but because she wasn't part of their inner circle, their secretive, illicit financial arrangements. The ramifications were immense, threatening not just her career but her entire future. Insomnia became her constant companion, a relentless, cruel tormentor. She would lie awake in the suffocating darkness of her apartment, the sterile glow of her alarm clock illuminating the ceiling, counting the minutes, then the hours, as her mind became a relentless treadmill of scenarios, betrayals, and desperate, half-formed solutions. The psychological pressure mounted, manifesting as a dull, throbbing ache behind her eyes, a constant, nauseating knot in her stomach that made eating a chore. She started losing weight, her appetite vanishing amidst the relentless turmoil. Her once vibrant complexion became sallow, her eyes perpetually shadowed. Jasper Monroe, of course, noticed. His concern deepened, becoming a quiet, insistent hum in the background of her frantic, racing thoughts. He'd bring her cups of soothing tea she couldn't drink, offer gentle massages she couldn't relax into. "Elise, you're killing yourself," he'd said one evening, his voice laced with a raw desperation that finally broke through her self-imposed isolation. "Please, talk to me. What's going on? You're fading away." He gently touched her arm, his touch a grounding presence in the swirling chaos of her mind. She had held back, unwilling to burden him with the ugly, complicated reality of her professional life, or perhaps, still grappling with the sheer enormity of the deception herself, unable to articulate the depth of the rot she had discovered. But now, seeing the genuine anguish in his eyes, the weariness that mirrored her own, she knew she couldn't face it alone. She needed an ally, someone to ground her in the escalating madness. She confided in Jasper, hesitantly at first, then in a torrent of words, the story pouring out of her like a dam finally breaking. She detailed the subtle slights, the stolen opportunities, the pervasive feeling of being undermined, and finally, the damning internal memo, its corporate jargon belying its sinister intent. She watched his face as she spoke, seeing his initial bewilderment transform into understanding, then quiet fury. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowing with a dangerous glint she rarely saw. "This is unconscionable, Elise," he said, his voice low and dangerous, each word carefully enunciated. "This is more than just office politics. This is fraud. They're systematically defrauding clients and trying to push you out to cover their tracks. This is criminal." His unwavering support was a lifeline, a beacon in the storm. He didn't dismiss her fears, didn't try to sugarcoat the situation. Instead, he met her raw pain with a fierce resolve that mirrored her own. He encouraged her to continue documenting everything, to gather even more evidence, to be strategic, to think like the formidable lawyer she was. He reminded her of her intelligence, her meticulous nature, the very qualities that had made her an exceptional lawyer and would now serve as her most potent weapons. "You're a brilliant mind, Elise," he'd said, taking her hands in his grip firm and reassuring. "They underestimated you. Don't let them win by giving up. We will fight this, together." He suggested she reach out to someone external, someone who could offer an objective legal opinion without compromising her precarious position at Sterling and Holt, someone with no ties to the firm who could give her unbiased advice. The thought of involving an outsider was terrifying, exposing her vulnerability, risking her career even further if the information somehow leaked. But the alternative, allowing herself to be systematically dismantled, her career destroyed, her integrity compromised, was even more so. Jasper's calm resolve helped her push through the fear. She remembered Noah Benton, a former colleague from law school who had gone into regulatory compliance, known for his discretion and his sharp legal mind. He was meticulous, quiet, and possessed an unshakable moral compass. Hesitantly, she reached out, framing her situation vaguely at first, testing the waters, careful not to reveal too much, too soon. She mentioned complex professional difficulties and concerns about internal firm practices. Noah, perceptive and astute, picked up on the nuances immediately, sensing the unspoken urgency in her voice. He agreed to meet for coffee the following week, off the record, at a discreet, out-of-the-way cafe far from the financial district. The meeting felt like a clandestine operation, Elise constantly scanning for familiar faces, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She laid out the convoluted timeline, the fragments of evidence she had painstakingly collected, and finally, the full, unredacted internal memo. Noah listened intently, his expression unreadable, occasionally nodding, his gaze fixed on the table as if deep in thought. When she finished, the silence in the small cafe stretched, heavy with unspoken implications. He leaned back, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "Elise," he said, his voice quiet but firm, almost a whisper, "this looks like a clear case of breach of fiduciary duty, potentially even corporate malfeasance. The Orem Holdings LLC arrangement," he paused, emphasizing the name, "smells like a shell corporation designed to siphon off client fees and evade taxes. This is serious." He paused again, then added, "You need to proceed with extreme caution, but also with absolute resolve. They will come at you hard if they suspect you're onto them." He advised her to continue collecting evidence, but to be even more careful, to avoid any digital trail that could be traced back to her. He suggested she back up her files, keep meticulous notes, and, crucially, to try and find any other partners or associates who might have been similarly targeted or unknowingly involved in the scheme. He also urged her to consider her options, confronting them directly, leaking the information to the press, or pursuing a formal complaint with the State Bar Association. Each option carried significant, potentially career-ending risks. The weight of these decisions pressed down on her, an almost unbearable burden. The stakes were no longer just her career, they were about exposing a deep-seated corruption within a respected law firm, a corruption that threatened to undermine the very principles she had once held dear, the very foundation of justice she had dedicated her life to upholding. The path ahead was undeniably fraught with peril, a treacherous minefield of legal complexities and personal risks, but Noah Benton's clear-headed guidance, combined with Jasper Monroe's unwavering emotional support, solidified her resolve. The naive Elise was gone, shed like an old skin, replaced by a woman with a steely glint in her eye and a simmering anger that fueled her every meticulous move. She understood now that this was a war, not a minor skirmish, and she had to fight strategically, with the cunning and precision she employed in her corporate litigation cases. She began to approach her work with a new level of duplicity, a calculated detachment she hadn't known she possessed. She deliberately started taking on less demanding cases, creating an illusion of reduced productivity, almost as if she were quietly fading away. This subtly conveyed a sense of disengagement, lulling Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes into a false sense of security, making them believe she was accepting her diminished role, perhaps even considering an exit. This tactic freed up significant time and mental space, allowing her to meticulously document their illicit activities. She employed subtle, almost imperceptible tactics, leaving her office door slightly ajar to overhear snippets of hushed conversations that abruptly ceased when she approached. She would accidentally leave seemingly mundane documents on shared printers, then observe who picked them up, who seemed to glance at them with a furtive curiosity. She began meticulously cross-referencing billing statements with internal project allocations, noting inconsistencies that, on their own, might have seemed like administrative errors, but when pieced together, painted a damning picture. She discovered a glaring pattern of inflated hours on the Everett Sloan case, hours that were being attributed solely to Julian and Griffin, even though Elise had done the bulk of the initial, foundational work. The discrepancy was not just significant, it was egregious, a bold-faced lie on the firm's ledger. She also noticed that several other high-value clients, whose cases had recently been transitioned to Julian or Griffin under the pretext of strategic optimization, showed similar, alarming billing anomalies. The evidence was mounting, piece by agonizing piece, a mosaic of deceit slowly revealing itself. The psychological toll was immense. She lived in a constant state of hypervigilance, every interaction a potential trap, every email a coded message, every phone call a potential eavesdropped conversation. She wore a mask of polite indifference during the day, her true emotions carefully hidden beneath a veneer of professional composure. Insomnia intensified, leading to a perpetual state of bone-deep exhaustion that she masked with copious amounts of strong coffee and an iron will. Yet, amidst the tension, a new strength was forming within her. The anxiety was still there, a constant hum beneath the surface, a low-grade tremor that never fully subsided, but it was now coupled with a fierce, unyielding determination. She wasn't just fighting for her career anymore, she was fighting for justice, for the integrity of her profession, for the ethical principles she had once so blindly trusted. She knew she needed an internal ally, someone who might also be feeling the subtle shifts of favoritism, someone who understood the internal dynamics of Sterling and Holt without being directly implicated. She thought of Owen Calloway, a quiet, perceptive junior associate who had always seemed a bit too ethical, a bit too earnest for the firm's increasingly cutthroat environment. He was known for being observant, meticulous in his own work, and fiercely loyal to his clients, qualities that made him an outlier in the escalating corporate greed she was witnessing. Elise cautiously approached him, starting with innocuous complaints about the firm's new restructuring initiatives, gauging his reaction, searching for any flicker of recognition or shared unease. To her relief, Owen expressed similar frustrations, albeit more subtly, his voice low and tinged with a quiet exasperation. He mentioned feeling increasingly overlooked, his contributions minimized, his ideas dismissed without proper consideration. He admitted to a growing sense of disillusionment, a feeling that the firm's values were shifting beneath his feet. He, too, had noticed certain anomalies in client assignments and billing, though he hadn't connected the dots as Elise had. He recounted instances where his meticulously prepared reports for certain high-value clients were suddenly lost or replaced by less detailed ones bearing Julian or Griffin's names, as if his work had been silently erased. He, too, had been experiencing the psychological pressure, the insidious feeling of being undermined, a sense of professional claustrophobia. She decided to take a calculated risk. One late evening, when the office was largely deserted, bathed in the dim glow of security lights, she showed him the internal memo, the very document that had shattered her world, without revealing her source or the full extent of her investigation. Owen's eyes widened as he read it, his initial surprise giving way to a look of utter disbelief, then cold anger. This is unconscionable," he whispered, echoing Jasper's earlier words, his voice thick with outrage. "They're not just defrauding clients, they're destroying careers. This is systemic." With Owen as a reluctant but firm ally, a quiet force of integrity within the firm, Elise felt a surge of renewed hope. The crushing loneliness of her fight lessened, replaced by a fragile but real sense of shared purpose, a feeling that she was no longer adrift in a sea of deceit. With Owen Calloway on board, their collaboration became a silent, intricate dance, a clandestine operation unfolding within the very walls of Sterling and Holt. They communicated in hushed tones, often late at night when the office was quiet, or through encrypted messaging apps outside of work hours. Owen had access to different internal systems, different email threads, and his observations often corroborated Elise's suspicions, providing crucial missing pieces to her rapidly expanding puzzle. Together, they uncovered more damning evidence: a series of substantial wire transfers from Orem Holdings LLC, the opaque subsidiary, to personal accounts linked directly to Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes. These transfers, meticulously tracked, coincided precisely with the transition of high-value client cases from other attorneys, including Elise, to Julian and Griffin. It was a clear, undeniable paper trail of embezzlement and fraud, a blatant abuse of client trust for personal enrichment. The anxiety, though still present, a constant, low-level hum, was now interspersed with moments of quiet satisfaction, a grim sense of momentum building towards an inevitable, explosive confrontation. Her insomnia, however, remained a persistent tormentor. The exhaustion was bone-deep, a chronic fatigue that clung to her like a shroud. But the adrenaline coursing through her veins, the desperate need for vigilance, kept her perpetually alert, her mind racing even when her body screamed for rest. Jasper Monroe, seeing her visibly deteriorating health, the strain etched onto her features, insisted she take a break, even a short one. "You can't fight this if you burn out, Elise," he urged, his voice heavy with concern, his eyes mirroring her own exhaustion. "You need to clear your head, to rest, to strategize without the constant pressure of being in that building." She knew he was right. She scheduled a long weekend away, a small, rustic cabin in the mountains, a place of quiet solitude nestled deep within towering pines, far from the suffocating corporate atmosphere. The cabin, with its crackling fireplace and panoramic views of untouched wilderness, offered a much-needed respite. The silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves, the distant cry of a hawk, and the gentle gurgle of a nearby stream, was a profound balm to her frayed nerves. It was there, amidst the tranquility and isolation, that she had a breakthrough, a moment of clarity that pierced through the fog of her exhaustion. She realized that merely exposing them internally wouldn't be enough. Julian and Griffin held too much power, too many deep-seated connections within the firm, too many powerful allies who likely benefited from their schemes. They would find a way to bury it, to discredit her, to twist the narrative, to protect their own. She needed an external force, something with enough leverage, enough public pressure, to shake the very foundations of Sterling and Holt. She recalled a conversation with Noah Benton about the ethical obligations of law firms and the regulatory bodies that governed them, the ultimate arbiters of legal conduct. The State Bar Association. A formal complaint to the bar, backed by irrefutable, meticulously compiled evidence, would force an investigation, a public reckoning that the firm could not simply sweep under the rug. It was a risky move, one that could potentially end her own legal career if she failed, or if the firm managed to twist the narrative against her. But the thought of letting them continue their illicit activities, of allowing them to profit from their betrayal and taint the very profession she revered, was unbearable. The decision solidified, her resolve hardening like steel, crystalline and unbreakable. This wasn't just about her personal vindication, it was about protecting the integrity of the legal profession, about upholding the very principles of justice she had sworn an oath to uphold. She spent the rest of her time at the cabin meticulously organizing the evidence, creating a clear, chronological timeline of the fraud, drafting a preliminary complaint that outlined the allegations with chilling precision. Owen, back at the office, continued to gather any new information, carefully and discreetly, his actions mirroring her own careful planning. When she returned from the cabin, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, a quiet intensity that surprised even Jasper. He saw the subtle but profound change in her, the transformation from a victim to a warrior, her eyes no longer shadowed by fear but burning with a quiet, fierce determination. He was immensely proud, recognizing the formidable strength that had emerged from the crucible of her ordeal. The next phase was perhaps the hardest, laying the trap, the intricate, high-stakes gambit that would force Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes' hands, confirming their complicity in the scheme. Elise and Owen Calloway debated for hours, meticulously planning every step, anticipating every potential countermove. They decided to leak a small, seemingly innocuous piece of information, one that would be just enough to create panic without revealing the full extent of Elise's investigation. They created a fabricated email, purporting to be from a disgruntled former client, a fictional entity named Acme Solutions, subtly hinting at unusual billing practices and unexplained fees on a high-profile case recently handled by Julian and Griffin. The email was designed to look like it was intended for an external legal blog known for its investigative pieces, but with a slight, almost imperceptible typo in the email address, ensuring it would bounce back to the firm's internal server as an undeliverable message. This would make it appear as an accidental, external leak, rather than an internal operation. Owen, with his privileged access to the firm's IT systems, would ensure the bounced email landed in the right inboxes: Julian's, Griffin's, and crucially, the managing partner Lucas Whitman's, disguised as a routine system notification. The tension in the office became almost unbearable in the days following the planted email. Every phone call, every hushed conversation in the hallways, was scrutinized by Elise and Owen. They watched Julian and Griffin like hawks, noting their increased agitation, the hurried closed-door meetings in Julian's corner office, the furtive glances exchanged between them. Their faces, once composed and self-assured, now showed visible signs of strain, dark circles under their eyes mirroring Elise's own past exhaustion. Griffin, typically jovial, was snapping at junior associates, his usual charm replaced by a nervous irritability. Julian, usually unflappable, seemed to be constantly checking his phone, his calm demeanor replaced by a restless fidgeting. The bait was taken, hook, line, and sinker. Within days, the firm's tremors escalated into full-blown seismic activity. Lucas Whitman, the managing partner, a man known for his unflappable composure, called an emergency, unscheduled meeting with Julian and Griffin in his private conference room. Elise and Owen, positioned strategically nearby, pretending to work on urgent cases, could hear fragments of the heated discussion through the muffled walls. Accusations were hurled, denials were shouted, the voices rising in pitch and intensity. The air vibrated with a palpable sense of panic, a desperate energy radiating from the closed room. Lucas's voice, usually calm and measured, was sharp with anger. "What is this Orem Holdings LLC, Julian? And why are we seeing emails about unusual billing?" he roared, his voice cracking with indignation. Griffin stammered, offering weak explanations that dissolved under Lucas's piercing questions. Julian, for the first time, seemed truly rattled, his usual calm facade shattered. This was it. The moment of truth. Elise knew she had to strike while the iron was hot, before they could concoct a new cover story or try to scapegoat someone else. She had already prepared her official complaint to the State Bar Association, a meticulously crafted document, complete with all the irrefutable evidence, the detailed timeline of stolen cases, the undeniable patterns of fraudulent billing, the copies of wire transfers from Orem Holdings LLC to Julian and Griffin's personal accounts, and the original internal memo that started it all. The final, crucial piece was to ensure its swift delivery to the State Bar and the subsequent, inevitable media exposure. She contacted a journalist she knew, someone with a reputation for fearless investigative reporting and a strong, unshakable ethical compass. His name was Reese Thatcher, a veteran reporter for The Financial Beacon, known for his relentless pursuit of corporate fraud and his ability to hold powerful institutions accountable. She met him discreetly, late one evening at a neutral location far from the city center, away from prying eyes. She presented him with a carefully redacted version of her evidence, emphasizing the systemic nature of the fraud, the breach of public trust, and the implications for the wider legal industry. Reese, his journalistic instincts immediately piqued, promised to investigate further, but cautiously. He needed a clear, undeniable source, and the full story, before he could publish anything. "This is huge, Elise," he'd said, his voice low but firm. "But it has to be watertight. When you hit send on that formal complaint, that's my cue. We need to time this perfectly for maximum impact." The stage was set. The meeting with Reese Thatcher was a calculated gamble, but Elise knew it was the only way to ensure the truth would not be buried. She presented him with the carefully curated evidence. The anonymized internal memo, the detailed patterns of fraudulent billing, the undeniable links between the new subsidiary Orem Holdings LLC and the personal accounts of Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes. Reese, a veteran investigative journalist with a keen eye for malfeasance and a nose for a major story, saw the immense potential for a public exposé that would shake the foundations of the legal world. He agreed to sit on the story, ready to publish once Elise initiated her formal complaint with the State Bar Association. This timing was crucial. It would ensure maximum impact, preventing Sterling and Holt from controlling the narrative, and, more importantly, protecting Elise from immediate, isolated retaliation. He explained the symbiotic relationship between a formal complaint and media exposure, the former lending legal weight, the latter creating public pressure that couldn't be ignored. The next few days were a blur of nervous anticipation and meticulous final preparations. Elise finalized her official complaint to the State Bar Association, meticulously detailing every accusation, every piece of evidence, every date, time, and fraudulent transaction she had uncovered. The document was a masterpiece of legal precision and irrefutable fact. Owen Calloway, her quiet but indispensable ally, made physical and digital copies of all relevant documents, securing them off-site, in multiple encrypted locations, just in case the firm attempted to destroy evidence. He was her silent guardian, anticipating every contingency. The morning she filed the complaint felt surreal, a moment suspended between her past anguish and an uncertain future. Her hand trembled slightly as she pressed the send button on her secure email, but as the digital signal confirmed its delivery, a profound sense of calm settled over her. The die was cast. There was no turning back, only forward. The firm's reaction was swift, brutal, and utterly predictable. Within hours of the State Bar receiving the complaint, before even the end of the business day, Elise was summoned to Lucas Whitman's office. He was flanked by the firm's formidable legal counsel, a grim-faced woman named Fiona Madsen, known for her aggressive defense tactics. The atmosphere in the opulent office was thick with unspoken threats, the air crackling with hostility. Lucas, his face a mask of profound disappointment and thinly veiled anger, his voice low and dangerous, accused her of gross insubordination, flagrant disloyalty, and a malicious attempt to destabilize the firm. He painted her as a rogue agent, driven by personal grievance. He then offered her a generous severance package, a hefty sum of money, but contingent on her immediately signing a draconian non-disclosure agreement, NDA, that would effectively silence her, prevent her from pursuing any further legal action, and explicitly forbid her from speaking to the media. It was a desperate, transparent attempt to contain the damage, to buy her silence and make the scandal disappear. Elise, however, her voice remarkably steady despite the pounding in her chest, refused. She met Lucas Whitman's gaze squarely, her eyes unwavering. "I will not be silenced, Mr. Whitman," she said, each word imbued with a quiet but fierce conviction. "And I will not be a party to covering up criminal activity that defrauds your clients and tarnishes the legal profession." Her defiance seemed to genuinely stun them. Lucas blinked, momentarily taken aback by her unexpected resolve. Fiona Madsen, recovering quickly, launched into a rapid-fire recitation of legal threats, citing breach of contract, defamation, and potential countersuits that would ruin her career and her reputation. Elise remained unyielding. She had anticipated this, had prepared for it with no abenton. She calmly stated, her voice clear and unwavering, that she had already taken steps to ensure the information would be released regardless of their threats or any NDA she might sign. The veiled reference to the media, to Reese Thatcher, hung heavy in the air, an unspoken challenge. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. They were no longer in control, Elise was. The firm's attempts to intimidate her failed spectacularly. The very next day, a bombshell article exploded across the financial news landscape, penned by Reese Thatcher. The headline, splashed across the digital front page of the Financial Beacon, screamed, "Prestigious law firm implicated in extensive client fraud scheme, Sterling and Holt rocked by allegations of embezzlement and breach of fiduciary duty." The article, meticulously researched and heavily corroborated by Elise's irrefutable evidence, including anonymized snippets of the internal memo, detailed breakdowns of the fraudulent billing, and the intricate connections to Orem Holdings LLC, sent shockwaves through the entire legal community. Reese quoted unnamed internal sources and documents obtained by this publication, carefully protecting Elise's identity while maximizing the impact of the exposé. The media frenzy that followed was immediate, relentless, and all-consuming. Other prominent news outlets, both local and national, picked up the story, dissecting the damning allegations, interviewing disgruntled former clients who now saw their past billing statements in a new, sinister light, and scrutinizing Sterling and Holt's long-standing, once impeccable reputation. Legal analysts weighed in, condemning the alleged actions and speculating on the firm's future. The firm was thrown into absolute chaos. Phones rang off the hook, a relentless cacophony of panicked clients demanding answers, their trust shattered. The stock price of Sterling and Holt's publicly traded parent company plummeted, wiping out millions in shareholder value within hours. Lucas Whitman and Fiona Madsen were forced to issue a series of increasingly frantic, contradictory, and utterly unconvincing denials to the press, their carefully crafted corporate statements dissolving under the weight of mounting public evidence and outrage. Their attempts to deflect blame or portray Elise as a disgruntled employee fell flat in the face of Reese Thatcher's comprehensive reporting. Simultaneously, the State Bar Association, now armed not only with Elise's formal complaint but also with the intense public outcry and the irrefutable evidence presented in the media, launched a full-scale, aggressive investigation. Their press release stated that they were taking the allegations extremely seriously and would pursue the matter to the fullest extent of the law. The pressure on Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes became unbearable. Isolated, publicly disgraced, and facing the combined force of a formal bar investigation and relentless media scrutiny, their carefully constructed facade of professional integrity crumbled. Within days, both men were placed on administrative leave, their offices cleared out in hushed tones, then formally dismissed from the firm, their names publicly disavowed by Sterling and Holt. The firm, desperate to salvage what little remained of its reputation and to mitigate further financial and legal repercussions, announced an immediate internal investigation, promising full transparency and unreserved cooperation with the State Bar. For Elise, the immediate aftermath was a strange, dizzying mix of profound vindication and overwhelming exhaustion. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages from journalists seeking interviews, former colleagues expressing awe and support, and even law school classmates reaching out with messages of admiration. The gnawing anxiety that had plagued her for months, twisting her stomach into knots, began to recede, replaced by a quiet, deep-seated sense of triumph, a profound relief that the truth was finally out. She felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in years, as if a crushing weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Jasper Monroe was immensely proud, holding her close, his earlier worries replaced by unbridled admiration for her courage. Owen Calloway, too, was hailed as a quiet hero within the firm, his integrity now a shining, undeniable example amidst the wreckage. He was offered a more prominent, influential role within the firm's newly formed ethics and compliance department, his insights and ethical compass finally recognized and valued. His quiet diligence had been instrumental in proving Elise's claims. The exposure was complete, the first wave of justice delivered. The State Bar's investigation, fueled by the relentless media scrutiny and the irrefutable evidence provided by Elise and Owen, proved to be thorough and unrelenting. Subpoenas were issued, depositions taken, interviews conducted with firm employees and clients, and financial records meticulously scrutinized, piece by agonizing piece. The meticulous documentation Elise had gathered, the internal memo, the detailed billing discrepancies, the wire transfer records from Orem Holdings LLC to the personal accounts of Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes, proved to be the cornerstone of their formidable case. The fraudulent subsidiary was unequivocally exposed as a sophisticated, cynical scheme to divert client funds for personal enrichment, a blatant and unforgivable betrayal of the highest ethical standards in the legal profession. Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes, facing imminent disbarment, substantial civil penalties, and the very real threat of criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy, ultimately chose to cooperate with the State Bar, providing further details of the elaborate scheme in exchange for leniency in potential criminal proceedings. Their careers, once on a meteoric trajectory within the corporate legal world, lay in absolute ruins, their reputations forever tarnished. Their names became synonymous with professional misconduct. Sterling and Holt, though severely tarnished and facing a mountain of legal and financial repercussions, embarked on a painful but absolutely necessary path to redemption. Lucas Whitman, the managing partner, was forced to step down, accepting full responsibility for the firm's profound oversight and, crucially, for fostering a culture that had allowed such deep-seated malfeasance to fester unchecked. His resignation was a public acknowledgement of the firm's failures. A new leadership team was swiftly appointed, headed by Dahlia Stokes, a partner known for her unblemished record and unwavering commitment to ethical practice. She publicly pledged a renewed, uncompromising commitment to ethical conduct, transparency, and a complete overhaul of the firm's internal governance. For Elise, the outcome was both bittersweet and profoundly satisfying. Her immediate future at Sterling and Holt was, by necessity, uncertain. While she had undeniably exposed the corruption and championed justice, she had also, by her very actions, become a whistleblower, a disruptor, someone who had torn down the old order. She had known these risks, accepted them as a necessary cost. Yet, she had also emerged as a powerful beacon of integrity, a symbol of courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Her story resonated far beyond the confines of the legal profession. As the news spread, offers began pouring in from other reputable law firms across the country, all impressed by her intelligence, her tenacity, and her unwavering moral compass. They saw not a problem, but a powerful asset, a lawyer with a unique perspective forged in the crucible of adversity. She was no longer just a litigator, she was a champion for justice, a warrior for ethical conduct, a living embodiment of the principles she had fought so hard to uphold. The restoration of justice felt less like a sudden, dramatic event and more like the slow, steady, inevitable dawning of a new day, each ray of light illuminating the path forward. Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes were not only disbarred by the State Bar Association, their legal licenses revoked indefinitely, but also faced significant civil lawsuits from the defrauded clients, culminating in substantial financial judgments against them. Their once opulent lives, built on a foundation of deceit, were reduced to public ignominy and personal financial ruin. Their names became bywords for professional disgrace, etched into the annals of legal misconduct. The firm of Sterling and Holt, humbled and deeply scarred by the scandal, was forced to implement sweeping reforms, establishing new oversight committees, independent audits of all financial practices, and a stringent ethical review process for all partners and associates. The new managing partner, Dahlia Stokes, publicly apologized for the firm's past failings and pledged an uncompromising renewed commitment to transparency and integrity. While the firm survived, it was a shadow of its former self, a cautionary tale whispered in legal circles, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked greed and ethical compromise. Elise, however, thrived. Her new role at Haven and Ward, a firm dedicated not only to legal excellence but also to social justice and ethical practice, was invigorating. She was given significant autonomy, respected for her sharp intelligence, and valued for her unwavering moral compass. The work was challenging, engaging her formidable legal mind, but it was also deeply rewarding, aligning perfectly with her newfound purpose. She no longer felt the insidious pressure, the constant anxiety of betrayal. Her sleep, though still occasionally interrupted by the lingering echoes of her past ordeal, became more restorative, more peaceful. The dark circles under her eyes faded, replaced by a renewed vibrancy that reflected her inner calm. Jasper Monroe, her steadfast anchor, celebrated her triumph, a quiet joy in their shared victory. He saw the transformation in her, the peace that had replaced the turmoil, and their bond deepened further, forged in the crucible of adversity. Owen Calloway, too, found his footing, becoming a respected leader in the restructured Sterling and Holt, a force for positive change from within, working tirelessly to rebuild the firm's reputation on a foundation of genuine ethical conduct. He became a beacon of integrity within the very institution he had helped to expose. The experience had irrevocably changed Elise. She was no longer naive, no longer blindly trusting of systems, having learned the hard way that corruption could fester even in the most seemingly reputable places. But she had also learned the immense power of courage, perseverance, and the unwavering pursuit of truth, even when it felt impossible. Her story became an inspiration, a testament to the idea that even in the face of profound betrayal, justice could ultimately prevail, not just for the victims, but for the integrity of the system itself. She continued to work tirelessly, not just for her clients, but for the integrity of the legal profession itself, a vigilant guardian of the very principles that had once been so carelessly discarded. Her journey was a living, breathing testament to resilience and the triumph of the human spirit. Her journey had transformed her from a naive idealist into a pragmatic champion of justice, tempered by the fire of betrayal but unyielding in her commitment to truth. The constant gnawing anxiety that had been her shadow for so long gradually receded, replaced by a deep-seated calm and confidence that permeated her every action. She had faced her fears, confronted her betrayers, and emerged victorious, not unscathed, but undeniably stronger. The legal community, initially shocked by the Sterling and Holt scandal, now viewed her with immense respect, even awe. She was invited to speak at prestigious legal conferences, her story serving as a powerful cautionary tale of corporate malfeasance and an inspiring example of resilience and ethical leadership. She used these platforms not to boast or to revel in personal vindication, but to advocate passionately for stronger ethical oversight in law firms, to encourage greater transparency in financial dealings, and to empower other legal professionals to speak out against injustice without fear of reprisal. The legal landscape, particularly in corporate law, began to shift, albeit slowly. The Sterling and Holt scandal served as a stark warning, prompting other firms to reevaluate their internal practices, their client engagement models, and their financial structures. New regulations were proposed and debated, aimed directly at preventing similar abuses of client trust and power imbalances within partnerships. Elise found immense satisfaction in this broader impact, knowing that her arduous personal ordeal had contributed directly to a more just and accountable system for the entire profession. Her personal life, too, flourished, finding a new equilibrium after the storm. Jasper Monroe, who had stood by her through the darkest hours, remained her unwavering support and her quiet strength. Their bond had been forged in adversity, deepened by shared purpose and mutual respect. He saw not just the incredibly successful lawyer, but the brave woman who had risked everything for what was right, who had refused to compromise her integrity. Their relationship deepened, rooted in honesty, shared values, and an understanding that transcended words, a quiet sanctuary from the complexities of the world. Owen Calloway, Elise's quiet but steadfast ally, continued to be a formidable force for positive change within the remnants of Sterling and Holt. He maintained a strong ethical compass, working tirelessly to rebuild the firm's reputation brick by painstaking brick, transforming it from within. He and Elise remained close, their shared experience forming an unbreakable bond of trust and camaraderie, a unique understanding born from shared adversity. They often met for quiet dinners, exchanging updates and discussing strategies for continued ethical reform. Elise had, in essence, reclaimed her narrative, transforming herself from a victim of betrayal into a triumphant agent of justice. The bitterness that had once threatened to consume her had dissipated, leaving behind a clear, sharp resolve and a profound sense of peace. She had not only exposed corruption but had also contributed to a systemic shift, proving that even a seemingly insignificant individual, armed with conviction and courage, could ignite a profound and lasting change. Her journey was a powerful testament to the enduring power of integrity and the ultimate triumph of justice, a quiet, powerful victory built on unwavering determination and moral fortitude. She was a beacon, a living embodiment of ethical principle in a world that often seemed to forget it. Elise's transformation was profound, radiating outwards from her core. The sleepless nights and the gnawing anxiety that had once consumed her had been replaced by a quiet sense of accomplishment and a renewed, vibrant energy that fueled her every endeavor. She found herself working with a different kind of fervor, one driven not by a desperate need for external validation or professional advancement, but by an internal compass that pointed unswervingly towards ethical practice and unwavering client advocacy. Her new firm, Haven & Ward, was a revelation. A stark contrast to the oppressive environment she had left behind. Unlike the cutthroat, hyper-competitive culture of Sterling and Holt, Haven & Ward fostered a truly collaborative and supportive environment. Her colleagues, like Quentin Ward, a senior partner known for his meticulous attention to detail, profound legal scholarship, and unwavering integrity, embraced her expertise and respected her past experiences, seeing them not as baggage but as invaluable assets. She was no longer battling internal forces, no longer navigating a treacherous landscape of professional deceit. Instead, she was channeling her formidable energy into meaningful, impactful legal work, championing causes that resonated deeply with her refined sense of justice. She took on complex cases involving corporate ethics, advising burgeoning tech companies on transparent business practices, fair labor dealings, and robust compliance frameworks, a stark, fulfilling contrast to the deceptive maneuvers she had uncovered at her previous firm. Her experiences had gifted her a unique perspective, an almost prescient ability to spot potential red flags, anticipate ethical pitfalls, and identify systemic weaknesses that others might miss. This foresight made her an invaluable asset, not just to her clients, who trusted her implicitly, but to the broader legal community she now actively engaged with, sharing her insights and advocating for change. She became a sought-after mentor to younger associates, both within Haven and Ward and in the wider legal sphere, sharing her story not as a tale of victimhood, but as a powerful testament to resilience and the paramount importance of holding true to one's core values, even when faced with overwhelming pressure. She stressed the critical importance of meticulous documentation, of trusting one's instincts, and of finding and cultivating reliable allies in the face of adversity. Her guest lectures at prestigious law schools, detailing the intricate legal and ethical complexities of her case, became immensely popular, inspiring a new generation of aspiring lawyers to prioritize ethics, integrity, and client trust above all else. Her reputation grew exponentially, not just as a brilliant legal mind, a sharp litigator capable of dissecting the most complex corporate structures, but as a genuine beacon of integrity, a moral compass in a profession often criticized for its gray areas. The name Elise Carmichael became synonymous with unwavering principle, a stark and shining contrast to the disgraced, now whispered names of Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes, whose professional lives remained in ruins, their legacy forever tainted by scandal. The restoration of justice extended beyond just the punishment of the wrongdoers. It encompassed the rebuilding of trust, the revitalization of ethical standards across the profession, and the quiet, profound triumph of moral courage that inspired systemic change. She was not just a lawyer, she was a force for good, shaping the future of legal ethics. The ripples of Elise's courage continued to spread, even months and years after the immediate dust of the scandal had settled. The legal community, once rocked by the sheer audacity of the fraud at Sterling and Holt, was slowly, painstakingly rebuilding its trust with the public. Elise played an active, pivotal role in this ongoing reformation. She accepted an appointment to a prestigious state bar committee focused specifically on ethical oversight and firm accountability, advocating tirelessly for stricter regulations, greater transparency in client billing, and more robust internal financial dealings within law firms. Her voice, once silenced by fear and the oppressive weight of betrayal, now resonated with undeniable authority and conviction, her arguments imbued with the raw power of first-hand experience. She was no longer just a lawyer who had survived a professional ordeal, she was a leading figure in the burgeoning movement for ethical reform in the legal profession, a true champion of systemic change. Her relationship with Jasper Monroe deepened even further, becoming a sanctuary of peace and unwavering support amidst the whirlwind of her increasingly public life. He saw the immense toll the fight had taken on her, but also the immense strength it had forged within her, the steely resolve that now defined her. He was her quiet confidant, her unwavering champion, providing the emotional ballast she needed to navigate the challenges. Together, they built a life rooted in honesty, mutual respect, and a shared commitment to making a positive impact on the world. Their love had been tested and strengthened by the crucible of adversity. Owen Calloway, now a highly respected partner at the restructured Sterling and Holt, frequently sought Elise's advice and counsel. He was utterly committed to transforming the firm from within, ensuring that the egregious mistakes and ethical lapses of the past were never, under any circumstances, repeated. Their alliance, forged in secrecy and sustained by shared principles, continued to be a powerful force for good, a testament to their enduring trust and camaraderie. They often collaborated on initiatives aimed at promoting ethical conduct across the legal landscape. The final chapter of Elise's extraordinary journey wasn't about vengeance, or even solely about personal vindication, but about a profound sense of restoration, not just of justice for herself and the defrauded clients, but of her own shattered faith in the inherent goodness of people and systems, albeit now viewed through a lens of healthy, pragmatic skepticism. She had learned the hard way that evil could masquerade as professionalism, that greed could corrupt even the most respected institutions. But she had also learned, and irrevocably internalized, the immense power of courage and integrity, even when faced with overwhelming odds, that these moral virtues could ultimately prevail against the darkest forces. Her story was a powerful, inspiring testament to the idea that even in the darkest of times, one person's unwavering commitment to truth could ignite a flame that illuminated the path to justice for all, leaving an indelible mark on the legal world and beyond. She was Elise Carmichael, a woman who had walked through fire and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined, a living embodiment of the enduring power of justice and personal conviction. The culmination of Elise's journey wasn't a singular explosive event, but a powerful sense of enduring resolution and a profound, quiet understanding of her own formidable strength. The echoes of the past, the insidious microaggressions, the chilling realization of betrayal, the relentless psychological pressure, no longer held the power to haunt or diminish her. They had, instead, become invaluable lessons, forging her into an even more formidable advocate for justice, both for herself and, crucially, for others. Her work at Haven and Ward flourished exponentially. Recognizing her unique expertise and passion, she was instrumental in establishing a brand new division within the firm dedicated exclusively to corporate ethics and whistleblower protection. This division, a direct outgrowth of her personal experiences, became a leading national resource for individuals and organizations grappling with complex ethical dilemmas and internal corruption. She lectured not only at law schools, but also at high-profile corporate ethics conferences, sharing invaluable insights into recognizing, combating, and preventing systemic corruption within large organizations. Her advice, tempered by hard-won experience, was sought by legal professionals and corporate executives across the country, a quiet but powerful affirmation of her restored standing and profound influence. The narrative around Sterling and Holt slowly but decisively shifted from a tale of egregious scandal to a story of difficult, but ultimately successful, redemption. Under Owen Callaway's persistent, unwavering leadership and the new management's genuine, demonstrable commitment to reform, the firm began the long, arduous process of rebuilding its shattered reputation. It was a painstaking endeavor, but by embracing radical transparency, implementing rigorous new ethical protocols, and genuinely prioritizing ethical conduct over profit, they slowly but surely regained a measure of trust within the legal community. Owen, in a profound testament to his own unwavering integrity, eventually ascended to the role of the firm's managing partner, a true embodiment of restorative justice from within the very institution that had once fostered corruption. Elise and Owen maintained a close professional and personal friendship, a bond cemented by their shared ordeal and mutual respect. Their conversations were a nuanced mix of strategic legal discussions, shared challenges, and wry reflections on the absurdities of human nature. They were living proof that even in the face of profound betrayal, genuine alliances could form and lead to powerful, positive, and lasting systemic change. Elise found a deep and abiding sense of peace in her life, a profound contentment born from aligning her professional purpose with her deepest personal values. Her relationship with Jasper Monroe continued to be a boundless source of immense joy, stability, and mutual support. He had been her unwavering rock, steadfast in his belief in her, and together they built a future founded on honesty, courage, and shared respect for justice. She had, in essence, reclaimed her narrative, transforming herself from a victim of betrayal into a triumphant agent of justice and an architect of change. The bitterness and resentment that had once clouded her perspective had dissipated, leaving behind a clear, sharp resolve and a profound sense of self-worth. She had not only exposed corruption and held powerful individuals accountable, but had also contributed to a significant systemic shift, proving unequivocally that even a seemingly insignificant individual could ignite a profound and lasting change that echoed through an entire profession. Her journey was a powerful, inspiring testament to the enduring power of integrity, the transformative journey of personal growth, and the ultimate triumph of justice, a quiet, powerful victory built on unwavering determination and moral courage. The echoes of the conflict, though now distant and fading, served as a constant, subtle reminder of the perpetual vigilance required to uphold justice in a complex world. Elise's journey had truly come full circle, culminating in a powerful synthesis of personal experience and professional impact. She was no longer fighting for her place, she was actively shaping the very landscape of ethical practice within the legal field. Her division at Haven and Ward became a leading national voice in whistleblower advocacy, successfully representing individuals who, like her, had faced immense retaliation for exposing wrongdoing across various industries. She often reflected on the subtle beginnings of her ordeal, the overlooked emails, the dismissed ideas, the vaguely attributed work, understanding now with profound clarity that these seemingly minor transgressions were not isolated incidents, but rather the early warning signs, the insidious tendrils of a deeper, more pervasive rot within an organization. This invaluable insight allowed her to develop robust, groundbreaking training programs for corporations and law firms across the country, teaching them to identify and address microaggressions, subtle power imbalances, and early signs of unethical behavior before they could escalate into full-blown crises of fraud and betrayal. The restoration of justice wasn't just about punishing the guilty, though that was a necessary step, it was fundamentally about building a more resilient, transparent, and ethical future for all. Her reputation grew exponentially, not just as a sharp, formidable litigator, but as a preeminent thought leader in corporate governance, legal ethics, and ethical leadership. She collaborated extensively with distinguished legal scholars, prominent policymakers, and influential industry leaders, contributing significantly to the development of new regulations and best practices aimed at protecting whistleblowers, fostering a culture of transparency within organizations, and ensuring accountability at every level. Her insights were considered groundbreaking, reshaping the conversation around corporate responsibility. Her personal life, once consumed by anxiety and suspicion, now radiated with a profound sense of peace and contentment. She and Jasper Monroe, their bond stronger than ever, enjoyed a quiet life filled with intellectual pursuits, shared passions, and a deep, abiding appreciation for the simple joys they had once been too stressed to notice. The shadows of the past no longer loomed. Instead, they served as powerful reminders of the resilience they had found together, the strength born from enduring adversity. Owen Callaway, at Sterling and Holt, continued to lead the reformed firm with unwavering integrity, transforming it into an institution that actively championed ethical practice, slowly but surely repairing its reputation one honest case, one transparent transaction at a time. He and Elise remained close professional confidants and personal friends, their shared experience forming an unbreakable bond of trust and camaraderie. The legacy of Elise Carmichael was not just a story of individual triumph against corruption, but a testament to the transformative power of unwavering conviction, a shining beacon for those who dared to challenge injustice and demand accountability, leaving an indelible, positive mark on the world. She had not only restored justice for herself but had also paved the way for a more just and equitable future for countless others, solidifying her place as a true legal luminary. The final act of Elise's journey wasn't about a single grand gesture or a dramatic climax, but a steady, persistent, and systemic influence that fundamentally reshaped the legal landscape. Her tireless work with the State Bar Ethics Committee culminated in the successful implementation of new, stringent guidelines for partner compensation, client fee structures, and internal financial auditing practices. These reforms directly addressed and closed the loopholes exploited by the fraudulent subsidiary scheme that Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes had orchestrated. These new regulations, widely adopted across the state and soon influencing other jurisdictions, served as a powerful preventative measure, making it significantly harder for similar illicit activities to occur undetected within law firms. Elise found immense, quiet satisfaction in this profound systemic change, knowing that her personal battle had contributed directly to a broader, more ethical and accountable environment for all legal professionals. She also became a highly sought-after expert witness in complex cases involving corporate fraud, ethical breaches, and white-collar crime. Her first-hand experience in uncovering and navigating the intricate web of deceit at Sterling and Holt lent unparalleled credibility to her testimony, making her invaluable in unraveling complex financial schemes and holding perpetrators accountable in a court of law. The pervasive anxiety that had once defined her professional life had entirely dissipated, replaced by a deep-seated calm and an unwavering sense of purpose. Her sleep was now consistently deep and restorative, a testament to the profound peace she had found. The dark circles beneath her eyes were a distant memory, and her once fraught demeanor had transformed into one of serene strength and quiet confidence. Jasper Monroe, ever her unwavering support and devoted partner, witnessed this profound transformation with immense joy and pride. Their shared journey had forged an unbreakable bond, and their life together was characterized by mutual respect, deep intellectual companionship, and a profound sense of shared values. They often reflected on the past, not with bitterness or lingering resentment, but with a quiet understanding of the resilience they had cultivated, and the invaluable lessons they had learned. Owen Callaway, still at the helm of a reformed and increasingly respected Sterling and Holt, continued to consult with Elise on matters of ethics, compliance, and firm culture, a testament to their enduring partnership and their shared, unshakable commitment to integrity. The firm, under his ethical and determined leadership, was slowly but surely regaining its former prestige, built now on a new foundation of trust, transparency, and unimpeachable ethical practice. Elise Carmichael, once a pawn in a larger, cynical game of power and greed, had not only reclaimed her own agency and career but had become a formidable force for justice, her story a powerful and inspiring narrative of betrayal overcome, personal growth achieved, and integrity triumphing over corruption. Her legacy was not just in the high-profile cases she won, but more significantly, in the systems she helped to reform and the ethical standards she helped to uphold, leaving an indelible, positive mark on the entire legal profession for generations to come. She was a living testament to the truth that justice, when pursued with courage and conviction, will always find its way. Elise's influence continued to expand, solidifying her status as a leading voice in legal ethics and corporate accountability, reaching far beyond the confines of the courtroom. She became a founding member of a national nonprofit organization dedicated specifically to supporting whistleblowers across various industries, from finance to healthcare to technology. This organization provided crucial legal counsel, essential emotional support, and powerful public advocacy for those brave individuals who dared to speak truth to power, often at great personal risk. Her own harrowing story served as a powerful, living testament to the absolute necessity of such an organization, and her lived experience resonated deeply, empathetically, and immediately with every whistleblower she encountered. She often drew direct parallels between her initial naive belief in the inherent integrity of the system and the journey of countless whistleblowers who, like her, began their careers with an assumption of honesty and ethical conduct within their organizations, only to be met with profound betrayal and systemic retaliation. She guided them meticulously through the labyrinthine processes of evidence collection, complex legal strategy development, and careful media engagement, ensuring they were not only prepared but fully equipped to navigate the treacherous, often isolating waters she had once faced alone. The restoration of justice for Elise thus transcended mere personal vindication. It blossomed into a profound, lifelong mission to ensure that others would not suffer the same injustices, the same professional and psychological torment, that she had endured. Her collaboration with Owen Callaway remained robust and vital. He frequently referred individuals seeking whistleblower protection and ethical guidance from within the legal sphere to her organization, knowing implicitly that they would receive compassionate, highly competent, and fiercely dedicated legal representation. Their professional synergy was a testament to the enduring power of ethical alliances, forged in the crucible of shared adversity and a mutual commitment to integrity. Elise also dedicated a significant portion of her time to pro bono work, particularly for marginalized communities disproportionately affected by corporate malfeasance and exploitation. She believed deeply in the fundamental principle that justice should not be a luxury reserved for the privileged, and she leveraged her considerable expertise, influence, and network to fight tirelessly for those who lacked the resources, power, or voice to fight for themselves. Her life was now a vibrant, richly woven tapestry, imbued with a profound sense of purpose, widespread impact, and deep personal fulfillment. The insomnia, the crushing anxiety, and the relentless psychological pressure that had once been her constant companions were now distant echoes, replaced by a pervasive sense of calm, an unshakable inner peace, and an unwavering resolve. She had found her true calling, not just as a brilliant lawyer, but as a vigilant guardian of integrity, a fearless champion for those who sought to expose injustice, and a powerful architect of systemic ethical change. Her journey was a compelling, deeply moving narrative of resilience, profound transformation, and the enduring power of a single individual to effect monumental, far-reaching change, leaving an indelible, positive mark on the pursuit of justice for all. She was no longer just a survivor, she was a pioneer. In the final, enduring reckoning, Elise Carmichael stood as a towering testament to the indomitable power of integrity and unyielding courage. Her arduous personal battle against insidious betrayal had not only secured profound justice for herself and the defrauded clients, but had ignited a broader, irreversible movement for ethical reform within the notoriously complex and often opaque legal profession. The State Bar Association, in a landmark decision that sent ripples of change through every law firm, formally adopted the Elise Carmichael Whistleblower Protection Act, a comprehensive and robust set of regulations specifically designed to safeguard legal professionals who courageously report unethical or illegal conduct within their firms. This groundbreaking legislation, a direct and undeniable result of her tireless advocacy and the immense public outcry generated by her high-profile case, was a monumental achievement, ensuring that future lawyers would possess significantly greater protections and avenues for redress than she had at the outset of her ordeal. She had truly become a systemic changemaker, her influence extending far beyond individual cases. Her national organization for whistleblowers thrived, expanding its reach exponentially and becoming a widely recognized and respected authority in the field of corporate accountability and ethical transparency. She painstakingly assembled a dedicated and diverse team of legal professionals, many of whom had similar personal experiences of battling corporate corruption and institutionalized deceit, thereby creating a powerful, compassionate, and highly effective collective force for justice. Her narrative, once a deeply personal and agonizing ordeal, had transformed into a universal symbol of defiance against institutionalized deceit, a rallying cry for truth and transparency. The memory of Julian Mercer and Griffin Hayes, now largely relegated to cautionary footnotes in legal ethics textbooks and whispered tales of disgrace, served as a stark and painful contrast to Elise's shining, enduring legacy. Their fall from grace was absolute and complete, their once illustrious professional lives irrevocably destroyed, their reputations permanently tarnished. Sterling and Holt, though still operating, carried the indelible mark of its past failures, a constant, tangible reminder of the devastating consequences of straying from fundamental ethical principles. Owen Callaway, as the newly appointed and universally respected managing partner, tirelessly worked to maintain and further enhance the firm's hard-won, renewed ethical standing, a testament to the profound and positive ripple effect of Elise's courageous actions. Elise's personal life was now imbued with a profound and unshakable sense of peace, a quiet contentment that radiated from within. Her relationship with Jasper Monroe was a constant source of immense strength, unwavering joy, and deep mutual respect, built on a foundation of shared values and enduring love. She had not only navigated the treacherous, shark-infested waters of professional betrayal but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resolute, using her harrowing experience to forge a luminous path for countless others. Her story concluded not with a dramatic flourish or a fleeting moment of triumph, but with the quiet, powerful, and deeply satisfying fulfillment of a life lived with unwavering purpose, profound integrity, and an unshakable commitment to the eternal pursuit of justice. She was a living legacy, a radiant beacon of hope for all who dared to believe that, even in the face of deep-seated conflict and overwhelming betrayal, justice could indeed find its way, illuminating the path forward for a more ethical and accountable world.